El Día de los Muertos celebrates the lives of loved ones and friends who have passed on and left us with fond memories and remembrances of their contributions to this community. Antonio Prieto embodied the spirit of education, friendship, and service to the community through his respect for Pan-Americanism. This year, the Des Moines Art Center honors the life of Antonio Prieto and the legacy he left to all of us.
Antonio was born in Mani, a small town in Colombia, in the Llanos of Colombia.
Los Llanos, meaning the flat plains located in the Orinoco River basin that runs between Colombia and Venezuela, are some of the world's richest tropical grasslands. This rugged cowboy country is teeming with wildlife that includes the green anaconda, the world's largest snake species, and the rare Orinoco crocodile. It is also the land of the cumbia and jorocho.
His parents, Gregoria Roldan, and his father, Antonio Prieto. He lost both parents at the early age. He grew up with his godfather, Marcos Gil, who sent him and his children to El Secreto, where a couple from missionaries from Des Moines opened school, and Mr. Hill thought that his children, as well as Tony, could get a better education and guidance spiritually. And so he and his good friend Felix Morales got a scholarship to come to Des Moines. They attended Tech High School in Des Moines. At the same time also they were attending the Open Bible Institute to learn more English, and they needed, of course, to have economical help, and they started working, especially in the summers. Tony went to Texas to learn more English, and then he went to Midland College in Nebraska and got a degree in sociology and education. He married in an evangelical church, and then they had a boy, Tony Jr., but the marriage ended up in a divorce. And later on, Tony decided to continue his studies, and during the summertime, he went to Saltillo, Mexico, and got his degree, his master's degree in literature. I met Tony in a conference at Drake University, and it was a cultural program. And Tony and I became friends since then, and we were involved in different activities in the community, and it naturally developed love between us. And then he proposed me to marry him in 1973, and we got married on May 26, 1973, and we were together for 37 years.
Tony exemplified his favorite saying, "Where there is a will, there is a way." He believed that education, determination, and dedication opened opportunities for a good, purposeful life.
His experience inspired him, to tell the students to continue with their education because it is the only way they could succeed in this country or anywhere.
I met Tony. I was vice president for student life at Drake, and I went to the Des Moines school system to meet their staff, and Tony had joined the staff as the Spanish coordinator for all of the Des Moines schools. And Tony and I talked about students, and we talked about success. We talked about families, and we talked for about an hour the first time we met, and from that point on we were friends. We put together a very strong Hispanic group at Drake, and we included Hispanic community members, and of course Tony and Hilda they were my first choices to make sure they worked with our students and with the families of our students. A wonderful guy, great advocate, a great friend in every way.
I first met Don Antonio when I arrived here in the Des Moines area. It would have been around the mid-70s. I was engaged in working with migrant seasonal farm workers. And so the population that I dealt with kind of dovetailed into the population that he dealt with in the education system, working with Latino kids. I learned very quickly that, boy, he was a fighter, and he really, really wanted to defend, if you would, and the rights of the kids. And not only that, more than just defending, he also had a vision of how the kids could receive a good, solid education. And this vision of his extended not only really to the schools themselves, but even to the parents. Because in a way, it was an education for the parents as well as to how important it was for their kids to attend. So he had lots of meetings with the parents themselves, as well as, of course, the little battles that he would engage with in dealing with the school system.
I first met Antonio Prieto, or Senor as we used to call him in the ELL program, back in 1980, right here at Weeks Middle School. I had just been hired to teach in the English as a Second Language program, which was mostly Southeast Asian students. Antonio was already here at Weeks Middle School in 1980 as a Spanish teacher. Earlier, he had been asked by the Des Moines Public Schools to support a Spanish-speaking family, the Bernardino family, who had moved to Des Moines and who were struggling in their classes. As a teacher of Spanish, a Spanish speaker himself, Antonio became the pioneer in providing services to Latino students in Des Moines. So the program grew from that very first family that Antonio serviced until at this time we have over 5,000 students in the English Language Learner Program in Des Moines Public Schools, K through 12, 58% of which are Latinos. Without Antonio's pioneering efforts, without the kind of advocacy he advocated for Spanish-speaking students, I'm not sure we would have as great a program as we do today. So we thank Antonio for his pioneering efforts and his great love for the students and their families.
In the late 1990s, Des Moines area Hispanics enjoyed programming from Univision, a Spanish-language broadcast corporation.
We had a 24-hour channel with Des Moines Area Community College in Grandview. And so when we weren't televising, or when we weren't using the channel for the consortium, we turned it over to the Spanish network. But when we needed the channel and we would take the channel, and Tony had a program he wanted to see, he'd always call up and say, Don, you took us off. This is the wrong time. You do your work some other time. And I'd say, Tony, you do your work some other time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilman. I'm Antonio Prieto, and I'm a member of this Latino Advisory Educational Committee, and I'm also the General Coordinator for Pan American Week activities here in Des Moines. The Latino population is more than double, or has more than doubled since 1975. TCI and their associates have decided not to offer Univision any longer to their long-time subscribers. This is the only reason why they subscribe to a cable company, TCI, because they could watch Univision. And remember, it was not just the Latino population, but many people, they want to learn, they want to be educated people and learn a second language. The hundreds of people that have signed this petition, we have many envelopes, want Univision back. It is their right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prieto.
Antonio and his supporters scored a victory and got Univision back on the air. This laid the groundwork for full-time Spanish language programming today. With his wife Hilda, he organized an annual celebration of Pan American Day in coordination with Drake University, highlighting the importance of education and healthcare, as well as presenting the cultures of the countries in North, Central, and South America.
The inspiration for the Pan American celebration actually came from Tony, but before I had the idea to have a special program with my students. I was the advisor of the Spanish club, and we decided to have a cultural program, and I told them about the Pan American Day celebration in my country and in most of the Latin American countries. And so we started with a small program, inviting foreign students, even including my students, to perform music or poetry. And then Tony came to one of these programs, and he said this program can be a program not just for your students, but for the entire community of Drake and Des Moines.
The Pan American Festival was one of a kind. When it was started in Des Moines and when it came to Drake, the people in the city were, who were interested in Pan American countries and highlighting the countries, educating Des Moines citizens and particularly students about their homeland.
It was a program that could teach the community about the countries of this hemisphere, from Canada to the Patagonia. Drake University, fortunately, helped us by providing us the place and supporting us, the guests, and we invited celebrities, from politicians, educators, doctors, businessmen. We had parade, we had fashion show in Morehead Plaza. Mary Brubaker was the master of ceremonies. And he got the key of the city by the mayor Kivaro in 1982 for his participation in Pan American celebration.
When I was a young teacher, I'm still young, we began in a very humble way this program here at Drake in 1968 with the assistance of a professor of history. We're doing it for one reason, to bring people together. I was born outside of the USA, and I did not know too much about the world. Today I know a little bit more about the world. We know by what these people have said that we cannot survive divided. We cannot survive thinking of only our own culture. We cannot survive without an education. The key to success now, tomorrow, the next millennium, is going to be education. He did it for me, and I know it's going to do it for you, for your grandchildren.
In the last few years, he had asked me to be Master of Ceremonies for the Pan American Festivals at Drake University. Now, this was an honor for me, it really was, to be an MC, and I took delight. I mean, it became a ritual. Every year he would ask me to be the MC, and of course I would agree, but around the early spring, I would get that phone call from Don Antonio, and I would lift up the phone and I would go, "Hello?" And he would go, "Lorenzo Sandoval." And I thought, I know who this is. I know who this is. And of course, instantly I would smile and I would know what it was about. And you know, I have to say, really in these last couple of years, I've kind of missed that phone call. It was just an invitation to do something that was so meaningful for him and ultimately so meaningful for the community. So of course I was going to do it. Who wouldn't? For Don Antonio, of course.
Pan American Week was the brainchild of Tony and Hilda. I mean, there wasn't much of this going on in Des Moines at the time. So it was, you know, it predated the current Latino Festival, which is a much bigger event. But it was, you know, it was really amazing that Tony, and with Hilda's help, was able to bring this off so many years ago.
Even after he had retired from Des Moines Public Schools, he would continue to haunt the offices of the English Language Learner Program to insist that high school students have the opportunity to attend Pan American Week every year at Drake University.
He has this talent, I would say, to meet people and not just to say hello, but to talk to them about culture, about his country, about Pan American celebration. Mrs. Vilsack, the wife of the former governor, was at the Botanical Center, and he went and talked to him and said, "I know you," and says, "Yeah, aren't you Mrs. Vilsack?" "Yes, you know we are going to have Pan American Day, and you are invited. Can we have tea in the governor's house?" He said, "Why not?"
Antonio and Hilda were found out about my wife, Amparo, who's a Colombian, and so he often had parties at his house and get-togethers of Latinos. And so we were invited to one of those and met a lot of other people who have been friends ever since. And that's typical of Tony and Hilda, that they did that so often.
Well, when he came first to the States, he wanted to be involved in different activities. He loved this country, he loved the education, and most of all, he loved his culture. Since I met him, we were always trying to do our best to be involved and help the Hispanic community, especially the Mexican community.
30 years ago and 40 years ago, you didn't hear much about Latinos. People who were here before that, the families who moved here, say 50 years ago or 60 or 100 years ago, they were victims of discrimination, and so they weren't eager to, to let it be known that they were Latinos or that they were Mexicans or that they were Guatemalans or whatever. And so I think Tony's contribution, to me, his biggest contribution was to be upfront and out there about being a Latino and celebrating the heritage of Latinos. You know, he contributed a great deal to society because we are a society of immigrants, all of us. Some of us forget about that, and it's convenient sometimes to forget about it, but we're all immigrants, and so I think it's important to recognize that, and that's what Tony helped to do.
I hope he knows that he's had a lasting influence. He's had a lasting influence on me because I understood from him grace, gentility, humor, elevated thoughts about education and service to society. He left that on me, And very definitely, I know he left an imprint on all the lives that he has touched.
Ahora que estoy ausente de mi Colombia, la patria de mis caros anhelos, añoro sus ríos y sus montañas, sus llanuras inmensas, sus mujeres risueñas y su cielo. Ahora que estoy ausente de mi Colombia, la patria de mis caros anhelos, añoro sus ríos y sus montañas, sus llanuras inmensas, sus mujeres risueñas y su cielo. Yo le quiero cantar y le quiero pedir a mi Colombia, le diga a toditos mis hermanos que si llego a morir en lejanía, que si llego a morir en lejanía, me lleven y me entreguen en sus brazos. Yo le quiero cantar y le quiero pedir a mi Colombia, le diga a toditos mis hermanos que si llego a morir en lejanía, que si llego a morir en lejanía, me lleven y me entreguen en sus brazos.